Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the 212 Mr. Olympia. Today's guest is Shaun Clarida. Shaun, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
For sure, Shaun. So first of all, thank you for taking some time to chop it up with me. It's an honor and privilege of mine to have a Mr. Olympia on the podcast. And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions I like to start each podcast with. The first one is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
If I had to pick like three, I'm going to go ahead and say Dexter Jackson, Flex Wheeler, and Shawn Ray.
All right. Why Dexter number one?
Because, well, Dexter is number one to me because he started off as a bantamweight the same way I did. And he heard the same things over the years. You're too small, you're too short, you'll never make it. And, you know, look at him now. He's the, in my opinion, the best bodybuilder of all time. Someone I consider a close friend now. I talk to him on a regular basis. He's been my motivation since I started competing. You know, at that age, at that time, I wasn't sure how far I can go with this. But watching him, seeing his story, learning about him, it told me like, hey, he made it that far. You know, who's to say I can't be a Mr. Olympia one day? And fast forward, here we are.
For sure. Now, I want to ask you, because obviously, you know, you've been around Dexter. Have you been able to compete against him like in the same competition on the same stage or not?
Well, the 2016 New York Pro, he was in the open class and I was 212. So that was the closest we got to compete against each other.
So speaking to that, Shaun, like being able to be backstage, around Dexter, being able to communicate with him on a regular basis, considering him a good friend now, is that a little surreal even for somebody like you that has all the accolades and the titles now, or do you kind of just take it all in stride?
No, because I'm still a fan. You know, when I'm still around any of these guys, Flex, him, it's just like I'm still a fanboy. I'm still taking pictures with him like it's like I'm a regular fan. You know, it's definitely surreal and something I definitely, it means a lot to me. It definitely is motivation. But yeah, no, I don't take it, like, oh, it's just Dexter. No, to me, it's like, this is Dexter Jackson. Even still to this day, it's like that for me.
So cool, man. I love that. All right. So at what age, Shaun, did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Oh, man. I mean, I started lifting weights when I was a kid. I remember going into my dad's den. I was like maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. He had a set of dumbbells in there, and I would just go in and just pick them up and put them back down. Clueless to what I was doing, obviously. But it wasn't until I would say college where I got serious with bodybuilding and proper weight training. I was 23 years old. I was a D1 wrestler at Rider University, and I had to gain weight in order to make the 125 weight class. At that time, I was 110 pounds. So my coaches told me, you have to lift and eat. And that was my job. So obviously, all I did was go to the cafeteria. I go to the gym to train. And in the midst of doing all that, I met a bodybuilder in my gym by the name of Tom Garuba, a local competitor who wasn't a pro or anything. But he had saw me in a tank top one day, say, hey, you have a great physique. You ever think about competing one day? Again, I had saw the magazines, but I was very clueless to what bodybuilding really was and what it entailed. And I let him talk to me about it. I watched all his VHS tapes of him competing. I saw his trophies, his accolades, and it sparked interest in me. So I decided to take on this challenge. I let him train me for 3 months. I did my very first show in 2005. It was the NPC Mid-Atlantic Championships. I ended up placing 3rd in the novice lightweight class. And then from there, it was just, that was it. I was bit by the bug and I just continued on with it.
Very cool, my man. So before we kind of dive into all things bodybuilding, I do want to I like to use that last question about when you started lifting weights to kind of tie into a little bit of childhood, right? Because that's kind of the, the gist of this podcast is kind of getting behind the muscle, right? So you mentioned wrestling. If you don't mind sharing with myself and the listener, Shaun, where did you grow up? And then just paint that picture of childhood a little bit, talk about wrestling, talk about maybe some of the other sports, talk about some of the family dynamics up to about high school, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I grew up in Hackensack, New Jersey, born and raised. I was a very active kid. I mean, I did everything. I was a Boy Scout for 11 years. I played Little League baseball. I played summer basketball. My my mom just wanted to keep me as active as possible. I was never one of those kids who sat inside and played video games. I was always out getting in trouble, playing sports, whatever the case may be. And hard work was always instilled in me from day one. My father worked damn near 15, 16 hours a day. My mom was a hard worker. She was always involved in all my activities and sports. And again, like I just kind of just, from there, which I feel like that childhood is what developed me and made me to who I am today, where I'm very competitive in everything I do. I want to be the best at everything I do, because that was always a dream, always a goal, to be my best in whatever I put my mind to. So that's kind of how my childhood went.
So in terms of just being, like a smaller kid, did that play into, like, did you get picked on? Did that have any type of, play in terms of your psyche, or is that something that you've kind of always used, to your advantage and maybe put a chip on your shoulder? And obviously now it's something positive, but when you were younger, was that something that was difficult for you?
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty funny, because I was never one of those guys. Again, I was very active, but I was also, I would say, like super popular, because I wasn't like, but I had a lot of good friends. So being picked on was never something that I had to deal with. Everyone knew who I was. Everyone kind of respected what I did. And I just had a lot of friends. I mean, obviously it wasn't until bodybuilding, when I turned pro in 2012, when I started hearing, you're too small, you're too short, you're too this, too that. And that's kind of when I kind of, even though I didn't pay attention to it, it was always in the back of my mind. And again, I always say, I don't want to prove these people wrong, I want to prove myself right. And again, I just kind of keep my head down, keep my mouth closed, and I just worked. I knew what my goals were, I knew what my dreams were, and I knew that if I continued to work hard, again, remembering what Dexter Jackson did, Dexter did it, why can't I do it? And I just kind of followed his lead and just work toward that goal. And, here I am today.
So let's talk about wrestling. How old were you when you started wrestling? And then you mentioned earlier that you got an opportunity to wrestle in college. So why don't you talk about what wrestling meant to you when you started it, and then talk about being able to pursue wrestling in college?
I actually started wrestling pretty late. I had two good friends, Chris Potato and Jason Chacon, who I grew up with from elementary school, who were wrestlers since elementary school. So I'd obviously see them wrestling at practice or in a match. I'd hang out with them. I'd see all their trophies or their videos. But it wasn't until high school when I actually joined a team. My junior year, Chris and Bo J was like, hey, our starting 103 pounder, because that was the weight class, I was 103 pounds, is going to be, graduating. We need someone to step up and take that place next year. So they brought me onto the team my junior year. Again, still very new to the sport. I did wrestling practice. I would do additional practice at either Chris or Jason's house. I had a wrestling school program that I went to after that. So I was very much like dedicated to being the starter that next year, which I was. So I came in my senior year. I automatically was a starter. I was 100 pounds soaking wet at that time. And I loved the sports. Like literally those 2 years, it just grew on me so much, the wrestling aspect. And I'll talk more about where I would have been if I wasn't bodybuilding. But I did my senior year. I did pretty well. I didn't make it to states, but I was a district. I placed high to districts. I did very well, and I wanted to continue on wrestling because I loved it that much. But I also wanted to stay close to home. So I actually ended up writing to the coaches at Rider University, which is New Jersey. It's a D1 program, probably one of the best programs in the country when it comes to wrestling. And I told the coach who I was, what I was looking to do. Obviously, coming as a freshman, I had to earn my spot on the team. You just can't walk into a D1 program and be on a team. So they gave me the opportunity. We had kind of like a tryout. And like literally that first month was just like they tried to break you completely down. It was just 6 a.m. workouts and 6 p.m. workouts. It was just nonstop. But I made it through, and I was on the team. I made it as a walk-on, something, again, that's very rare to do. I was a part of the team. And I knew that eventually my time would come to be a starter at 125 pounds. But eventually, again, like I said, I found the sport of bodybuilding. And it was like, do I go bodybuilding or do I go, continue wrestling? And I kind of thought about my future and where it lied and what I was really passionate about that time. And it was bodybuilding. And I'm glad I made the decision. Now, had I not been bodybuilding and I continued with wrestling, obviously I would have been a starter, hopefully at the 125 class, and then tried to move on to something like MMA, maybe after college from there. So I think if I wasn't bodybuilding, I'd probably be doing some type of UFC or mixed martial arts right now.
For sure. Absolutely. So when you were in high school, what did you kind of want to be when you quote unquote grew up, or what were you planning on doing post high school? And then what did you study in college, Shaun?
Something with business. I studied business administration. Kind of when I knew I wanted to do something in the business aspect, but that changed pretty quickly when I got into college. And then I just wanted to study communications, thinking maybe I could do something with broadcast or something with TV, television, radio, maybe. And that's what I studied. That's what I graduated with. And I did a little bit of also graduate school studies with business. So I had the communications experience. I also had a little bit of business experience. So it could have been one of two ways. But like a lot of us here, we have degrees, we don't use them. But I don't regret it at all, because obviously going to college is what got me into bodybuilding. So now I'm a full-time bodybuilder, thankfully. This is my life, this is my career. But I do still have degrees. I'm not a dumb bodybuilder by any means. So if worst case scenario, I need to fall back on those, hopefully not. I do still have those.
I think it's probably pretty fair to say at this point in the game, in the career, Shaun, you probably won't have to fall back on those degrees. Now, I am curious though, business and communication, and you said something about maybe radio or TV. Where was that interest, at that age? And that's why it's so fun for me on this podcast. We get to talk a little bit more than just reps and sets and, the bodybuilding stuff before we kind of get into the bodybuilding stuff. Where did that interest for business and communication come into play? And obviously you studied that stuff. What piqued that interest in the beginning for you?
Honestly, I was always in some type of business aspect. I remember I was in I think my freshman year of high school. So my cousin owns a carpet business in New Jersey, and he would have me work the store. So I was pretty much the manager of the store at that time. So people would come in, I would book appointments, I would set up, have them look around, help them out in that aspect. So it kind of always grew up in me. Again, my family is very much in the business aspect. So it kind of grew up in something I've always liked. And always kind of just respected. And even as I grew up in certain positions, I was a manager for a gym for several years. I was a fitness program manager for a couple of years. So just being almost like in that business aspect, being like a semi-owner, a manager of some sort, was always something that I loved and was always passionate about. And I knew that, at a college, this is something I want to do. And obviously management, business, and communication all go hand in hand. So obviously, if bodybuilding wasn't there, that was something I'd probably be doing right now, aside from maybe MMA or UFC.
And it's kind of interesting though, because now as a professional bodybuilder, you obviously have your own brand, your physique, your body is literally your business. So is it kind of cool how life has kind of brought everything together? You had this interest, you were helping, with the family business and doing some managerial stuff. You studied business and communications, and now your body is your brand. You have your own brand. It is all business. Is it kind of cool how life works out like that, Shaun?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You let you say that. It's it literally is business and communication, because I'm having to manage my career as a bodybuilder, manage my brands, doing the interviews like that, meeting with other companies. So it all kind of just went full circle.
Yeah. No, that's awesome how life works out like that sometimes. Now, let's start moving into the bodybuilding side of things. So, talk about that first competition that you did. You said it was 2005. Why don't you talk about that first prep? Did somebody help you? What was that experience like? And then were you immediately bitten by the competition bug after that first show? Just kind of unpack that for us, Shaun, please.
Yeah, so meeting Tom Garuba in 2000, I think it was 3, was it 4? I met Tom, I think 2004. I met Tom Garuba, the old school bodybuilder from New Jersey. Again, I seen what he had did and his trophies and accolades. I said, this looks pretty cool. I'd like to give it a shot. So he literally prepped me for 3 months, because at that time, I had no idea what a diet was, how to train properly. I just went to the gym, did the basic movements. I ate maybe 1 to 2 meals a day from the cafeteria, never weighed out or anything. And I actually got away with that for a couple of years. Honestly, cafeteria food and not weighing my food. So I had a pretty good metabolism and pretty good genetics to get away with that. But yeah, that first show was May 2005. It was a local New Jersey show, the NPC Natural Mid-Atlantic. I walked into the show. Again, I was 118 pounds, you know, and obviously the lightest weight class at that time for the novice class, I think it was like 150. So I was obviously underweight, had no idea about anything. I just had a pair of small black Speedos, and it was 5 guys in my class. And like, to me, these guys are like monsters. These guys are everybody's 150 pounds, like on a dot. So I get up there and my posing is horrible. I still look back all the photos and I'm like, wow, my posing was horrific back then. But I ended up placing 3rd out of 5. And it literally was like the feeling of preparing for the show, going through the motion, seeing my body change, being at the show, meeting all these cool people, being backstage, and the adrenaline rush of getting on stage in front of complete strangers in a Speedo. I mean, as crazy as it may sound, it really like intrigued me. And like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I wonder how far I can go with this. And at this time, I had no idea you can go pro with this sport. I didn't even really know what the IFBB meant. I didn't even know who Mr. Olympia was at the time. And but again, I did that first show, and I think right after that, I literally did 3 or 4 more shows back to back to back, because I was just like, I loved it. Let's do another one. Where's the next show? Let's go. And literally that first year, I think I did 5 or 6 shows within like 3 months span. It was pretty crazy, but that's how passionate I was. And then from there on, I just continued to learn more about the sport. Finally understanding what it really meant to weigh your food properly, how to pose properly, how to peak and prepare for a show properly. And as you see, year after year, I've gotten better. So I go from 118 pounds to 120 pounds to 130. So eventually I'm at the point where I'm now competing for a pro card, because now I know what it really means to be a pro, what I can do with it, where it can take me. And so again, those first couple of years, I was kind of just getting by, and luckily having good genetics, obviously having good work ethic. And, you know, I just found myself meeting the right people, being around the right people, the right places, the right time, learning from the best people. Jose Raymond was someone I learned a lot from early in my career. Factory Mubarak, Dave Palumbo. So these are the guys back then, like, I didn't always believe I could be a maybe good pro one day. But these are guys that were at that point, and they say, no, you can definitely do this, you know. And it was their help and influence what got me to eventually get my pro card to nationals in 2012. And then kind of just from there, I was almost starting over again. You know, you're a good amateur, and then you get your pro card, then you start from the bottom again, and then you have to work your way back up. So that's kind of how my journey has been going so far.
Talk about once you got done with college, did you find like a gym that you kind of trained at in those earlier years? I know out there on the East Coast, like there's a lot of still old school hardcore gyms.
Yeah.
I know you're training at an awesome facility right now, but talk about that first gym, that environment that you trained at post college.
So I had 2 gyms I was actually training at. One was New York Sports Club, which, as crazy as it may sound, it was back then, it was like the old school equipment, you know, hammer strings, you know, Nautilus, Body Masters, and all the guys that, you know, were in that gym, they were bodybuilders. So I learned a lot from them. My good friend Rob, he was a bodybuilder. So like the whole mentality that I have of like wearing baggy clothes now, it all came from these guys. Because you go into the gym, it's like, okay, everybody's wearing hoodies, boots, and sweatpants. This is what it's got to be like. And I understood why now, because it's comfortable. So I had New York Sports Club, but I also had another small gym that I found called the Muscle Mill, which was literally maybe 10 minutes from where I was living. It was an old school gym. I believe Rich Gaspari trained there for a number of years. You walk in, it doesn't look like much, but then there's an upstairs to it where everything's just hardcore iron, old equipment. Nothing's really clean in there. I'm like, holy shit, this is it. This is where I gotta be. There was no AC, no heat. I remember training there in the dead of winter with a jacket on. But yeah, those are my 2 gyms back then, and that's kind of what got me through.
So since we're kind of at you know, this point of talking about gyms, I did want to ask you, now that you've been able to travel the world with bodybuilding as a professional athlete, why don't you give me 2, 3, 4, however many you want, of the top gyms that you've been able to train at over your years, Shaun?
Obviously, Bev Francis Powerhouse here in Syosset, the East Coast Mecca. My home gym, Signature Fitness, obviously has to be up there because we have a little bit of everything, a little bit of old school, a little bit of new school. And third gym, wow. I didn't train there. I kind of went there. It was Ronnie Coleman's Metroflex. It was just like, holy shit. Like, it was just like Ronnie trained here, Branch, Johnny. Like, you walk in there, it's just like wow, it's historic, it's legendary. And I think they even still have like the same equipment, that Ronnie and those guys used to train on. The owner obviously is an old school bodybuilder, big fan. I actually met him; he was there, which is pretty cool as well. Yeah, but so bodybuilding, man, I've been able to travel the world. I've seen being up to so many gyms. I mean, you can go to like that's what I love about competing and doing what I do because I'm able to travel to different parts of the world, try different equipment that I've never used before, visit different people. It's just an awesome experience.
What is it in your estimation, Shaun, that makes a gym great? Because a lot of times I think people think it's the equipment. I think that might be part of it, but just
Yeah.
because a gym has the latest, greatest equipment doesn't mean, it's necessarily a great gym. So for your perspective, what makes a gym great?
I think it's the people that run the gym. Case in point, Signature Fitness. They're 110% behind me. I mean, they know when all my shows are. They come to my shows if they can make it there. I think when you have a gym that respects what you do and ask your opinion about getting certain equipment, I think that's awesome. Steve Weinberger, case of, again, another huge, obviously he's a judge. He understands the athletes, he knows what they need, and he's always bringing in new equipment. So I think it's when you have a staff of people or owners that understand the sport, respect the sport, and are willing to hear the guys who are getting it done, the athletes' opinion on things, I think it makes for a great gym. Aside from the equipment and the atmosphere, again, I think it's very important.
Very cool. So going back into your competing, what was it, do you think, what's the one thing, Shaun, do you feel like after you did your first show in terms of competing and just the entire bodybuilding experience that really pulled you in and grabbed you and said, all right, like in your mind, like, this is what I want to do with my life? What was that one thing about bodybuilding and competing specifically?
I mean, aside from the rush, I think placing third and not placing dead last, it kind of told me like, hey, you're actually, you don't suck, but you're not the best yet, but you have something here, and being able to be the smallest guy on stage and beating two other guys who are much bigger than me, that just told me like, hey, you got something here. Let's just keep working and see where it goes.
Cool. So you turned pro at nationals, you said in 2012, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, cool. So once you earned your IFBB pro card, what was your mindset at that time? Because you said earlier, that's when you kind of started hearing, maybe some of the naysayers, he's too small, he's never going to make anything. So where was your mindset when you turned pro? And then how did you kind of work through some of that negativity that was being thrown at you at that time?
I knew right off the bat my first pro show was going to be New York Pro. Because as an amateur, I had gone and watched that show 3 or 4 years in a row, just getting motivated and just seeing these guys plus for us, that's our Olympia. Us North Jersey guys, New York Pro is our Olympia. And I said, hey, when I get my pro card, that's going to be the first show I did. And it was. I got my pro card in 2012. I took all of 2013 off to grow and get better and improve and made my debut at the New York Pro in 2014. I had my entire family there, my team, my friends. I had about 30, 40 people that came to watch me. Just being on it, I mean, yeah, I was the smallest guy there. I was 154 pounds, I believe it was. But I knew that I was the smallest guy, giving up the weight and the height to these guys. But just knowing I made it, had my pro card, was actually utilizing it. That was all I needed, and then obviously I didn't place last year either. So that was some more motivation. But getting the respect from my fellow IFB pros, getting feedback from the judges that I had a great shape, great conditioning. At that point, it was just size. I was just giving up size to these guys. And I knew that was something that was in my control. I can put on size if I worked hard. There are certain people that, unfortunately, they don't have the best shape, the best structure, and that's something you really can't work on. But because I had that in my corner and I knew that all I was giving up was the size to these guys, that was motivation for me, and again, not placing dead last. I was just again, almost like starting over again, like my first show. I was bit by the bug once again. And then being backstage next to I think I was back there with Rami, big Rami, and I took a picture. I was just like, oh yeah, this is huge. But again, it was just a rush of being on stage, being backstage, and just that whole entire process that kept me going. As far as the naysayers, man, I've never really paid attention. Like, I see them, I hear them. I mean, even to this day, even now having won the Olympia, there are still people that just talk smack. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they can't do it, or they don't have the balls to get on a stage one day. And I just laugh, because like I'm living my best life. I made my dream a reality, and not too many people can be in a position I'm in, being not just a good bodybuilder or a 212 bodybuilder, but I think at this point in time, after what I did to Legion Pro a couple weeks ago, it solidified myself as one of the best bodybuilders of all time. And again, not bigging myself up. It's just saying that, I know how much work and effort I put into this. And the fact that I'm able to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world, make this my career, and to support myself and my family. I mean, the naysayers, man, they're not doing anything for me. Again, I think when they say if no one's talking about you, that means you're not doing something right. So I take it all in.
Where does the passion and the vision and just, that fire within your soul come from, Shaun? Because a lot of people in life, I feel like, are just kind of wandering, and it's kind of it's the same thing. It's just a different day kind of mentality. So where does that passion, where does the fire, where does that drive come for you?
It's, I've said it many times. The bodybuilding shows are great. I love them. The passion and the fire for me is in the gym. Being able to get under that weight, push, and see my body change year to year to year, getting bigger, getting thicker, getting rounder, and then having a show to display the hard work I put in that year. But that's the key word, passion. I love everything about this sport. And there are days where it gets rough, it gets hard. I mean, I've cried many, many times. I admit it. And I got to the point where I was at my breaking point. But I always knew that this was temporary, and I knew that the end result was gonna leave something positive for me. And that's kind of how I always got through my day. Like, hey, this is temporary. Obviously the goal was to be Mr. Olympia. That's always been the goal since I turned pro, to be one of the best bodybuilders of all time. And that took me a while to do that. There weren't many people that thought I could do it. I'm sure if you count, there's maybe one or two people that probably believed it, but I believed it. But then that's what's most important. I don't care who else believes it, who doesn't believe it. I believed I could be. And I knew what it was going to take. It was going to take continuously working hard, putting in the work, staying disciplined, and just continuing that path. I always have steps I put towards something. So it's like the goal is to be Mr. Olympia, right? When I first turned pro. So obviously that first step was let me get on a pro show first. Cool. Let me get into that top 10 in the next show. Cool. Now let's get into that top 5. Top 3. Let's win a pro show. Now we're at the Olympia. Now we're starting over again. Let me get into that top 10. Let me get into that top 5, top 3, and then eventually working toward win. There's always steps for me. And every year I've said this as well, like I don't go backwards, meaning I have to always bring something new to the stage every year, win or lose. And that's always been what's enabled me to look better every single year and bring something new, because I put a lot of pressure on myself. I don't get that. The outside pressure doesn't mean anything to me. I don't listen to it. I don't take it all in. I put the pressure on myself. That's why I kill myself in the gym day in and day out. I'm in the gym at 4 a.m. doing cardio and abs. I'm back at the gym at 4:30 at night to train. And my coach may say, hey, do half an hour of cardio, and that's it. I will do 45 just because I know that it's only going to make me better. So that's kind of where my mindset of everything is.
When you were early in your IFBB pro career, was there another IFBB pro or maybe a judge or a coach that really spoke some powerful words into your life or to you that really you still hold on to at this point in the game?
I mean, yeah, again, I had a lot of friends like Jose, Guy Tristanino, Dave, Factory. But the one guy who I, to this day, still talks to me and I listen to is Clarence McGill. He's an old school bodybuilder. He's a natural pro, one of the best in the world. I think right now he's like 57, 58 years old, but a guy looks like he's 30. But he actually is the one that I met in 2006. He actually gave me my name, Giant Killer, because I was competing in a show. I was a bantamweight. He was training a heavyweight guy for that same show and ended up beating everybody and winning the overall. And he came backstage. He introduced himself to me. He had Clarence McGill. Congratulations, man, you're a giant killer. And that's when that name stuck. But yeah, Clarence has been in my corner since then. Before every show, Clarence will call me. And then after every show, Clarence will be the first phone call I get. He and his wife, Tajiri, have always been like family to me. So that's the one guy, if you say, what's the one person you can choose, it has to be Clarence.
Excellent, man. When did you start working with Matt Jansen, and how did he kind of take you maybe to that next level at that point when you guys connected?
So I started working with Matt in 2016. And the first big change he made was increasing my food. Again, as a wrestler, we don't eat much. You know, it's like, 3-4 meals of good. But he increased not just the amount of food, but how many times I was eating per day. And it took me a while to get used to that. That's a lot of eating. But I realized that my body could handle it, and that's what it needed in order to grow and improve. And then year after year, we just kept chipping away, getting, 3 pounds here, 5 pounds here, just getting sharper, getting more detail in certain areas. Matt is a stickler for conditioning, and he takes it very personal when his guys don't do well. And he's very passionate too. Like, he's all in. Like, for Olympia this past year, we actually all stayed in the same house together. He, myself, and Nick Walker, because he wanted to be able to wake up with us, see us every minute on the minute, eat a meal, pose, eat a meal, pose. That was the entire process. So again, he was one of the coaches that believed in me back then. I made a promise to him in 2017 that I would be his first Olympia champion. And he believed it. I believed it. And every year we worked toward that goal. And we were able to accomplish that in 2020.
Talk about John Meadows. I know that you had put some stuff on your social media, and I know it may still be a little bit difficult, but
Yeah.
all of the coaches and the pros that I've brought on my podcast that I know had some sort of connection with John, on a closer personal basis, I've brought this up because I want people in your position to share about John. I want his memory to continue because he is definitely somebody that had a very powerful, profound impact on the bodybuilding community and beyond. So just share whatever's on your heart about John right now, if you don't mind, Shaun.
I'm trying to get through this. Man, I would say this. My physique would not be where it is today without John. The training, the mentality, the training, the whole entire process. Every program John has put me through, he's gone through it himself, and he knows it works. It's tough. John was family to me, man. Not just him, but his wife, Mary, his 2 boys. And again, when you talk about people who believe in you, he believed in me. And for a small guy, 100 and, I think I was 150 pounds when I met John. He could have easily just said, hey, this guy's tiny. He's not going to go anywhere in IFBB. Well, why is he wasting my time? It was the complete opposite. He believed in me. We became friends. He worked with me. He provided my training programs every year. He assessed. He made changes as needed. I would go down to his house and train with him, spend the time with his family. He'd come up here. Obviously, we train at Bev's. Man, it's just, again, my mentality when it comes to training has always been like, go, 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 no matter what. But when I started working with John, it was like a light switch. It was like my intensity stepped up even more. And then obviously this year when we lost him, it was difficult for me, especially when I got the news. Like, I didn't go to the gym for a couple of days. I didn't care about the Olympia. I didn't care about any of that. But I knew that I had just talked to John maybe 2 days before that he had passed. And we already had plans for Olympia, what we were going to do together. He was going to come to my room. We were going to train. And I know John would have wanted me to continue on, and literally for those next 3 or 4 weeks, I'd say to myself every time I walk into that gym, let's do this, John. Let's do this. And for me, those hard days where it got really tough because obviously depleted, I would tell myself, John is right here. He's pushing me. He's going to get me through this set. And I think those last 3 weeks are probably the best 3 weeks of my entire career. My body I really stepped my game up those last couple of weeks. I believe that's truly what got me the look I had at the Olympia. Just knowing that John was looking down, he was there with me the entire time. And I really wanted to win, not for myself, but for him. Myself and Missy Truscott and Terrence, we were 3 of his main clients. And I know Missy and I were very disappointed that we didn't get the win for him. But Missy and I went to the Legion together, and we both got the wins there. And those wins were for John for sure.
Beautiful, man. Thanks for touching on that just for a minute. Okay, Shaun, I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
So how many Olympia titles whether it's 212 or open, we're just gonna say Olympia titles, okay? How many Olympia titles do you want, or are you going to win? However you kind of want to word that in your own mind.
Wow, it's tough, man. Yeah, I never like to put the cart before the horse. I never want to jinx myself. But I'm 39 years old, and I say it like this: Dexter retired when he was 50, right? I still feel good. My body feels great. I'm fresh. I'm healthy. You know, I don't see myself slowing down anytime soon. I don't like to put numbers on things just because I feel like it jinxes me a little bit. But I got one, and one is just not enough. I mean, it looks great and all, but you know, there's many, many more. I know the record for the men is 8. I want to beat that record, you know, and that's no stab at either Ronnie, Lee, Phil. That's no stab at them. You know, kudos to them for sure. But I want more than 8, man. I want to, you know, I want to go down in history as one of the best bodybuilders of all time to have won X amount of Olympias, you know, and that's just my goal. That's my dream. And I'm going to keep working toward that, whether that's 212 or open. You know, we've got some big decisions to make this year. Now being qualified for both the Olympia 212 and the open. You know, I don't know what's going to happen, man. I got a full year to figure this out. I would love to be able to compete in both. It hasn't been done besides David Henry in 2008. But as of recent, it hasn't been done. And you've never seen a guy 170, 180 pounds compete or beat guys like a Cedric McMillan or Sergio or Regan. I think these guys want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see how I can stack up against the best in the world. And truthfully, for having a full year ahead, you know, who's to say I can't put on another 5 or 10 more pounds and be in that top 6? I believe it. You know, and I think a lot of people now are believers now, being what I did at the Legion. I mean, if you would have asked 100 people the day before the Legion, is Shaun going to win this show? You'd probably get 98 people who said, there's no way in hell Shaun's going to win this show. And those 2 people that would say yes, probably my mom and my girlfriend. You know, but, you know, came that Sunday, you got people believing now, you know, and again, it wasn't to prove them wrong. It was to prove myself right, that I can stand with the best of the best. And God willing, hopefully the IFBB, Jake Woods, Solomon, they allowed me and give me opportunity to go against the best of the best in both the 212 and the open next year's Olympia. I'm
gonna speak it into existence right now. As you're sitting there, I'm sitting here having this conversation. The IFBB will do the right thing, and they're gonna allow you to compete at both. And there's no reason why they wouldn't. It's going to happen. And I think it's so exciting for bodybuilding. Now, Shaun, you know, let's touch on just a little bit. I know you've done some other interviews kind of talking about the Legion, but it is something unique. It's something special. It's an amazing accomplishment. Talk about that day and just when you kind of knew that you were going to win. What were the feelings and the emotions when you found out that you were the champion?
You know, waking up that morning of the show and checking my weight, I was 4 pounds lighter than the Olympia. So I was 174.6 as opposed to being 170 at the Olympia. And, you know, for me, I never get to see it. I don't really see like changes or what looks good or what's bad. But I had my videographer, John, and the manager for my gym, Signature, Will, was there with me. They were just like, dude, you're on. You're better than Olympia. I was like, we'll see. But then going to the show, it's Sergio. You got Cedric. You got Regan. These guys are all 250 plus, 6 foot plus. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I knew that conditioning wasn't as good in the open as it was in the 212. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to beat these guys or hang with these guys, it's going to be on my conditioning. I'm not going to outmuscle anybody. I'm just going to come up there and present the best of me possible. And I believe having the most complete physique, that should carry me into the show. But once I got that first call out, man, that was like, this is it. And I always said, you put me in the first call out, I'm ready to work. So as soon as they called my name for the first call out, I just turned on the light switch in my head and didn't look to my left, didn't look to my right. I just posed my ass off as hard as I possibly could, held everything, and just made it look easy. Because honestly, it's as bad as it may sound, posing is easy to me because I do it all the time, even my off season. And that's another reason why I think that helped me, because being able to hold and maintain your poses and not looking at struggling definitely looks good. But yeah, once I got to that first call out, I felt great. They didn't move me. I was right next to Regan, right next to Sergio. And then it wasn't really a confirmation until they pulled the three of us back. Sergio, myself, and Regan, like, you guys step back. And like, holy shit, we're in the top three. But at the same time, I wasn't celebrating yet, because again, I've seen guys be in that top three and then come back and place fifth. But when I got to the night show and they called the top three guys out again, man, that just, that was a great feeling. But again, I still wasn't sure. You just don't know. But then when I heard Sergio got third, I'm like, holy shit, top two, wow. And then Regan, then they called my name as the champion. Like, I think at that moment I told myself, holy shit, I just did something that no one would have ever thought would have happened. And like, I just made history. And Chris, the promoter, said, dude, you're a different breed. It's like, I just can't believe, like, I won the show and I won this huge trophy and I just beat Sergio and Cedric and Regan. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's just so much going on at one time. And then getting back home and getting the interviews and you're making history, and like, it's just a lot to take in. But it was so overwhelming. Truly blessed by this opportunity to, there's not enough words, honestly, for what just happened. And a part of me kind of like forgot about the Olympia a little bit. Like, I played second. I'm mad. I'm disappointed. But that was just won the Open Legion. It's like, what Olympia? What happened? I don't remember. So.
Do you ever, this is, whether it's, related to competition or maybe just something you have the opportunity to do with, traveling or sponsors or just life in general. Do you ever get nervous, or do you ever have any type of anxiety? And if so, how do you work through that, or how do you manage that, Shaun?
No, I mean, this was my 52nd show. So 52 shows I've done in my career. I don't get nervous at all. But for this show in general, the Legion, I was definitely had a little bit of butterflies, because it was like doing my first show again. It's like, it's because I'm going to the Open. It's my debut. I've never stood next to any of these guys. I don't know what to expect. I'm sure the judges don't know what to expect. So I had a little butterflies, but I wasn't nervous. I was still very confident. So yeah, no, at this point in my career, I don't really get nervous. Now that I've done my first Open show, those jitters are gone. And I'm going into every show now, whether it's Open or 212, with the mindset, I'm going to win this. Whether it's the Olympia, the Arnold, I don't care how big the show is, I'm coming to win, or at least take out a handful of good guys.
The giant killer indeed. Talk about what your hoodie says, no plan B. I see Matt post that a lot. I see Nick post that. Talk about that mentality, that mindset, that slogan, please.
There's no other options for me. There's one goal, that's plan A. I always said you have to have that one thing you're committed to. I want to be Olympia champion. I never said, like, well, if I don't win Olympia, maybe I can do this, or maybe if I play second, it's still good enough. Like, no, my goal is to be Olympia champion. My goal is to be a Legion champion. My goal is to be number one at everything I do. So for me, taking away from that goal of focusing on other things takes away from that task, and that can happen. The same way when people ask me, hey, do you look at what other guys are doing in the off season or how they're training? Absolutely not. I don't care what this guy is doing, what he looks like, because again, taking time out of my day to focus on them takes away from me, and that can't happen.
So in one of the recent interviews, we're gonna start wrapping things up here. I just want to touch on a few more things. In a recent interview you did post the Legion show, you said that you were moving to Florida. Does that still stand? And why are you doing that?
That is an option. Absolutely. I love Florida, man. I've always been a fan since, years and years. Every time I go there, I just don't want to leave. It's perfect weather. I feel like the bodybuilding scene is growing tremendously down there. And I'll be honest with you, this on the East Coast, this snow is horrible, man. I absolutely hate it. And a lot of my family is leaving too from New Jersey. So my girlfriend and I, we kind of want a fresh start. We kind of want to go somewhere that we've been to and we enjoy and we like. And again, having the perfect weather, bodybuilding growing tremendously down there, I think it'd be a good start for both of us.
Cool. So you are for sure moving to Florida, or is it still kind of up in the air?
It's 90% for sure. 90%.
Very cool. Very cool. So I want to talk a little bit about just the training before we finish things up. Obviously, we can go to your YouTube. We see how you train, the mindset, the mentality,
Yeah.
kind of old school, hardcore, pushing the weight. Going into the off season this year, what is kind of the goal? Obviously, I know you want to continue to progress and put on some tissue. But what is kind of the focus going into this year's off season? And what is the training going to change at all? Is it going to stay the same? Any adjustments that you're going to make? Just touch on that.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of following the same principles that Meadows taught me last year. I was just coming off a show, not being 100% fully, back. We're taking it easy. I'm definitely pushing the weight right now, but not extreme. I'm making sure I'm not doing any movements that would put me at risk, especially now that I'm just coming off of a show. I'm training about 4 times a week right now, let my body kind of rest, because obviously during the prep, I'm in the gym all day, all night. I kind of want to have that time to kind of just chill out, spend time with my family, kind of just relax before we really get into the nitty gritty of things. So I think within like a month or two, that's when we'll really kick things up. We'll be training 5 days a week. And the focus this year, continuously bring up the chest, the hamstrings, the calves, and just overall filling out my frame a little bit more. Again, we were 178 at the Olympia. I would like to be on stage next year. I would say no less than, I'm going to really push the food this year, something I've never really done. I would like to be on stage, I would say 185 to 190 with the same conditioning next year. And I think at that weight with the same conditioning, it definitely, I think it'd definitely be a good look for me. And I definitely think I'd be able to hang with anybody, no matter what class, 212 or open.
What does pushing the food look like for you, Shaun?
Oh, that means taking my 6 meals I'm normally taking in and making it 8 to 9 meals a day. That means eating, instead of every 3 hours, eating every 2.5 hours. That means I'm getting up at 2, 3 in the morning when I go to the bathroom, pounding a protein shake, maybe a snack or something. Just really pushing the carbs the fastest off season. The protein doesn't really go too crazy with the protein, but just staying on top of that. That's one thing I really get lazy with. When guys are off season, they kind of just be a little slack with their food. I'm eating a lot less junk food than I usually would in the off season. I actually have started my off season diet right now. It consists of beef, bison, turkey, and white rice, a little bit of pasta. I kind of want to stay lean all year as well. I don't want to get too out of shape. And I'm in a good position right now, whereas a lot of the water retention I have from the show is gone. I'm still doing cardio, which is something I've never done in my off season. I'm taking this a lot more serious, I think, than ever, because I have an opportunity in front of me that can play dividends. If I come into the Open Olympia this year, again, if I'm able to make that top 6, I mean, I don't think that's ever been done. Again, I hate to talk about myself, but it's just, I don't think it's been done. And hopefully I can get that 212 title back as well, and then jump right into the Open and crack that top 6, man. Who knows what the sky's the limit at that point in time.
Doesn't it, when you have something great before you, Shaun, and something that's never been done, doesn't that just add fuel to the fire for you? Because I can kind of sense that. And isn't it just exciting to be in that place of making history? Talk about that.
It's crazy, man, because I don't sit back and think about it. It's almost like I don't believe it almost. But when I see the interview, I see the people writing the blogs and the stories and the posts, and people are saying, "Oh, history, you mean history?" It's like me, I did what did I do? I just want to show that was it. But it absolutely, definitely fuels me and motivates me, and it wants me to continue to push on, knowing that I got so many positive eyes looking at me. I feel like I'm in. I hear all the time from little guys, shorter guys. I'm a huge inspiration to them because they were small and they were short, and a lot of what I do is for them, because I know what it feels like to be in a position to feel like or hear that you're not good enough or you're too small. So me doing what I'm doing, I just want to open their eyes and to let them know, hey, I did it, you can do it. I've had some crazy messages in a good way from guys who are like, hey, because of you, I'm chasing my dreams, or because of you, if I had some, as crazy as it may sound, I had some guys on the brink of suicide, use me as a means to live on. And that just breaks me so much. So I don't want to just be known as a good bodybuilder, but someone that people can look up to, a role model, an inspiration, a mentor, whatever the case may be, to continue to fight, continue to chase their dreams, and just to prove themselves right. That's it.
So we're gonna close things up here just in a minute. Outside of bodybuilding, Shaun, I know it's all consuming. I know it's your life, it's your profession, it's all of that. But I know you have your significant other. I know there are some things that you do that's not bodybuilding related. So what are some of your interests outside of bodybuilding? What do you and your girlfriend do for fun to just kind of chill?
She hates me sometimes because I'm so boring. Like, I can just sit home all day and watch movies. But that's our time. We enjoy it together. We can be bums on the couch, eating our meals, watching a movie, and passing out on the couch. We don't go out as much, obviously, during prep. But once in a while, we like to go out and have breakfast together. We'll go to church together. We'll just kind of go to the mall, walk around the mall together. Just spending time together is good for both of us, because we know when prep starts, it doesn't happen at all. We don't talk for several months. As crazy as it may sound, and I'm very truthful in this, there are 3 or 4 months we don't talk because I just don't have the energy, or I get really bothered very quickly. And she can tell you, like, we don't talk. She'll sit at one end of the couch, I sit in the other. So when we do have that time, like right now, we'll spend as much time as we can together. We have some traveling coming up, or I have some traveling coming up that I want to have her come with me, just again, to spend more time, just to get out there more. Because again, once that time comes, well, we're back to work.
Favorite movie of all time, Shaun?
Back to the Future, hands down. I don't care what anyone says. 1, 2, and 3, the trilogy. I can watch it all day, all night. My girlfriend absolutely hates it, because I watch it like I've never seen it before, and I'll just be so intrigued, and I'll start talking. I'll start saying with the movie, talking with the movie. That's hands down. Back to the Future.
Very cool, man. So something that I've heard you, or somebody who I've heard you think in some of your previous interviews was God, right? And you just brought up church. Faith is something that's really important to me. How does faith play a crucial role in your life and you pursuing this legacy that you're pursuing?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Any of what I've done wouldn't be possible without God. I don't care. My mom always tells me, don't put man before God. And that's something that always sticks in my head. Like, don't put man. That means, if I can get up, go to a gym, or go hang out with friends, go to a show and do all this fun stuff, but I can't give, God 2 hours on Sunday to worship him and to thank him, then that's putting man before God. And that God isn't like that, And again, I'm not one of those guys who likes to put it out there like God. I'm faithful. I have my own faith. I don't put it on others. You want to, great, by all means. But for me, that's something that is definitely something that I wasn't always into it as much, but going into a lot more now when I am a little bit older, a little bit more wiser. I truly understand that, again, without God, none of this will be possible by any means.
Love it, man. All right, Shaun, I want to be respectful of your time. We're gonna wrap it up here. Do you have any final thoughts or words that you would like to leave myself and the listeners?
No, I mean, I just want to give thanks to everyone who just been following on this journey. It's been an amazing 16 years I've been doing this. God willing, we have another 16 to go. I have to thank, obviously, God, my girlfriend, Rosangela, for just dealing with me. And I've had other girlfriends in the past, and they're exes for a reason. She hung on. She's very passionate about what I do, respects what I do. My training partner. So I have to thank her for all of that. My family, obviously, at first they didn't get it, but now they get it, and they're very supportive. My coach, Matt, obviously John Meadows, my sponsors, Wolfpack, Mega Fit Meals, Gasp, and of course, Signature Fitness, for just the support, man, and belief. You can't do this alone. People think this is a solo sport, and I may be the only guy on that stage, but there's 50 to 100 people behind me that are motivating me, encouraging me, pushing me, getting me what I need in order to be my best. So once again, thank you to them. Of course, all the amazing supporters. I hate the word fans personally. I don't like to call people fans. I call them supporters to support what I do. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube for just following along my journey, sending a message, sending a DM, a comment, whatever the case may be. I do see all of them. I wish I could respond to all of them, but do know that I do see each and every one of them, and truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everybody.
So Shaun, last question, if you could just give a young listener that's maybe in a tough place right now, or they're just kind of struggling with their vision, they're struggling with passion, just what have you. If you could just leave some words with a listener in that situation or circumstance, what would you like to speak to them?
I want them to know the one thing I truly believe is timing is everything. I didn't wake up and become Mr. Olympia overnight. This was definitely a 16-year process, a 16-year journey that I'm sure, like me, they were probably like struggling in the beginning. They weren't seeing the progress they wanted. They didn't feel like they were going where they needed to go, but understand that timing is everything, and continue to work hard, continue to train your ass off, and most important, believe in yourself, and believe in your dream, believe in your passion, believe in your goals, because that's all I've done my entire existence with this sport. Is every year I've worked hard and I believe I can get to where I wanted to, but I understood that this is definitely a marathon and not a sprint, and it's going to take its time. And again, timing is everything, and you will be where you need to be when the time is right.
All right, Shaun. It's very humbling for me to be able to have this conversation with you, and I just want to say thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Really.
Absolutely. Listeners, those of you watching on YouTube, I just want to say thank you to you, because if it wasn't for you, the podcast wouldn't exist. Two huge favors I would ask of all of you. Please take this episode of Shaun's and share it on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you tag Shaun, tag Behind the Muscle. That way we know you listened and you found value in this episode of the podcast. And then if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And we know that we learned some new stuff about Shaun during this episode of Behind the Muscle, some things that maybe he hasn't even shared on other podcasts or platforms. Why don't you go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section on YouTube in regards to your favorite part of this conversation, something new that you learned about Shaun, maybe something that just really hit home for you in terms of what Shaun shared about his bodybuilding experience. Again, thank you guys so much. And I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.